Hi, this is Kimball Bullington. We're going farther in the define phase by looking at process definition. So, what is a process? And we define processes quite often with a diagram that looks a process map or flowchart that looks something like this. Where in the middle there's some sort of transformation process, and we can almost always use an ing word: cutting, welding, teaching, explaining, and so on. So some sort of conversion process where we're converting some input into some output. So the input can be information or knowledge or time or materials of various types. And we use some different types of processes, maybe multiple, usually many processes, and then create some outputs, which are our finished product that we sell, or it could be a service. Then there hopefully is some feedback that we get from this, from the outputs that we have that say, okay, what we're doing is right, or okay, what we're doing is not right, or could be improved. And we use this feedback hopefully to control future uses of the process. And we add value here in the middle. Now you see inputs, processes, outputs. We often will describe this a little bit further with the acronym SIPOC, which is suppliers, inputs, processes, outputs, and customers. So from the previous diagram where we had just inputs and processes and outputs, we say, okay, the suppliers provide those inputs and the customers are the consumers of those outputs. So sometimes also we instead of SIPOC, we use the phrase POCUS, which you actually usually start this process by of process analysis by looking at the process itself. So process, output, customers, input, suppliers is quite often the way the order in which a little bit. We're over here in the define stage, and in define we quite often will start with a current state process map. So a process map of a map of the process as it is, warts and all. We may then branch out to a SIPOC. So once we've defined the process, then we'll add in, or who are the suppliers, who are the key customers. We'd like to get a voice of the customer in the process in some way. This may be interviews or whatever. Idea generation. We actually talked about this earlier with the sticky storms. I won't go into a lot of detail here. And then get out and look. So this is actually go on a plant tour, facility tour, go to the people, go to the process and learn. This is part of that. The Japanese word gemba is used to describe this. And then create a project charter. So you really don't do the project charter first until you've sort of gathered information about it. And then you say, okay, here's what the project is going to be about. So we create process maps in a variety of different ways. Here's one just for your fun. Why? Picture's worth 1,000 words. It's just a lot easier for us to describe processes with diagrams and pictures. It helps us to identify waste, and it's just a critical state in process improvement. I believe the process mapping is the most powerful tool that we use in all of process improvement, because we use it in every phase, in some way or another, every phase of the DMAIC process. So we can use it to document and communicate current processes, train employees, identify areas of waste, identify areas for process improvement, create future state processes. Some ideas here are given on how to create a process. And I quite often like to use sticky notes and pencil and paper or pen and paper first. I do also want to note this one particular hint. Landscape is usually preferred over portrait orientation, and you almost always plot top to bottom, left to right. Here are symbols, the sort of typical symbols, and you can use a square sticky note as a process and then turn it 45 degrees and you've got a decision. So it's easy to do processes and decisions with sticky notes. and quite frankly, that's probably good enough. I can put a couple of vertical lines on that same sticky note, and I've got a predefined process. About the only thing you can't easily do with a sticky note is the document. And so just this flowchart, simple flowchart is good if one person does all the steps, but if we're handing off, then we use this cross-functional process map, sometimes called a deployment chart or a swim lane map. We'll usually call it a swim lane map. And the beauty of this is that a lot of the delays and errors happen when you have handoffs. And so this swim lane map will show you that. If we can map the value added, then that's another way that we use the process mapping, and there's a number of examples of non-value added provided there. Here's another example of the swim lane map, and we have all these handoffs. Here's just an indication of, quite often we want multiple levels of process maps, and so on. So a lot of benefit here, and this is a tool I really want you to get comfortable with, and you should use this at some point, probably in your, in any project that you have.